Hentuck himak pisama shapisa la shike anayan easy ayayan is buzzing. All right. I want to say this. We've been able to get so much content um, for our channels since TikTok has sort of taken off. You know, they wanted to ban it, and that was unsuccessful. TikTok is making a lot of revenue. I kind of choose YouTube over TikTok because YouTube is more for a mature audience. TikTok is more so for women. I want to say it's more so for getting things done in the community. It could be for that, but I don't really see it as that. I kind of see it as like a club atmosphere, for women to go and to just sort of exist. But that's not what I want to get on this particular episode and talk about. I want to talk about, in this particular episode, how we've been able to see what's been happening on TikTok and how it's been able to give us the sort of content that, that allows us to sort of move along. You know what I mean? Like, I've gotten a lot of content from TikTok just by watching it. But yeah, let me say this. Women. This will be about women. This particular podcast will be about women, and I wanted it to be about the topic of women going into the workforce. And the reason I picked this topic is because when I was scrolling through the about page of TikTok, I kept seeing white men with black women. I kept seeing it. And like, I had to say something. So let's get started. Women, since they've chosen to go into the workforce, they sort of forgot about everything else. They sort of forgot that when they got their PhD or their doctorate or their bachelor's, right? They sort of forgot that it's 40 hours in a day. You know what I mean? They forgot. When they got their nursing major, when they were qualified to get those prerequisites, they forgot. They forgot it was 40 hours in a day. And the reason I say this is because I look at the situation that I have, right? I have a home. I have 2 parcels of land. I have a yard, that's not far from, having great topsoil where I could just plant here, plant there. I have the soil. I have compost. I have all these things, right? And I can just, spring comes around, I can go in the backyard, dig a little ditch, throw some topsoil in it, plant a seed, and just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. I'm like a year away from doing these type of things. I'm like a year away from taking some, cotton, taking some thrifts, taking a needle and making my own shirts, making my own pants, making my own socks. I'm like a year away from doing these things. And, I sit here and I look at the women that I see, and it's like, they've chosen to go into the workforce. They didn't want to be wives 40 hours a week. They didn't want to be mothers 40 hours a week. Um, they didn't want to be a co-parenter full time. They didn't want to do these things. They wanted to go to college, um, meet Jose Enrico, meet Shaw Brad Smith. They wanted to meet this guy, you know. These are the things that they wanted to do, you know. They didn't want to stay at home and, you know, wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, open the blinds, you know, start the washing machine, sweep the kitchen, you know, throw out the leftovers. They didn't want to do these things. They didn't want to do these things. And it's like, I'm sitting here and I'm just thinking, like, you know, what were they thinking that it was going to take to, you know, keep family nucleuses together? They just didn't choose to go that route. They didn't choose to go that route. And we can see where men are kind of headed. You know, men are just like, you know, the man that I see, right? I'm seeing men just, you know, take on the obligation of, you know, staying to themselves, you know, checking out the dating scene here and there. They're choosing to rent. They're not choosing to own. They're choosing to rent. They're choosing to do that. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, the men have sort of just like, you know, gave up. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to be who their grandparents were. They've kind of given up on that idea. You know, men are choosing to have subscriptions to Brazers. You know what I mean? They're choosing to have subscriptions to Brazers, watching these type of, you know, adult rated channels. You know, and I'm to me, like, I don't know what makes a man want to go that route. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I always leave an opportunity of that window open. You know what I mean? Because like me, I have the option. Well, if I don't want to date African American, I can date purely African. You know, if I don't want to date African, you know, I have the option of being by myself. You know, I never saw myself wanting to date Asian. I've never been one who could see myself dating a Asian. Um, yeah, sure. Like if I go to Asia, maybe, you know what I mean. But I could see like myself, like I can see myself, you know, with the home that I have, right? I can see myself having a family, you know, headed by a wife that is African. I could see something like that happening. Um, you know, she coming to America and, you know, she or I can meet her at school or something like that if I chose to go back to school. Um, all just a matter of deciding. But I just couldn't see myself, you know, choosing to um, allow a subscription to OnlyFans, a subscription to Brazers to be my headed choice in deciding, you know, my emotional tick. Because you know, I have a book, right? And the reason I got this book is because I kept seeing that the fact that men were having addictions to porn, like men have addictions to porn. Um, when I used to sell DVDs, a guy used to always come up to me like, "Man, you got some flicks, man. I want some flicks. I don't want that. I don't want no I don't want no DVD on this particular movie or that particular movie. I want a flick." And I'm like, "Nah, I don't sell flicks, bro." You know what I mean? Like, and he will always come up to me and ask me that, so, and it's like men will have these sort of addictions to watching um women who would do these things, like sleeping with white males and, you know, doing whatever they choose to do, right? Um, I just always knew, like, men were going to figure this out one way or another, and it wasn't going to be difficult. Like, men actually are having problems with women to the point where it's just like it's difficult for them to, even ask them out. You know what I mean? Like, even ask a woman out. Like, maybe you want to go on a date with her. Maybe you want to start a family with her. And these men could be well into their 40s. You know what I mean? Well into their mid 40s. You know. Um. Like, I guess you can say I always had the option of dating. I didn't live in a community where it was just like, I'm going to be dating. You know what I mean? Like, if I lived in a college town, I think I would be dating by now, Um, I was just always curious as to know, like, am I dating the right woman? I never wanted to date the wrong woman. I never wanted to date a woman, who always had a homegirl or a pal, you know what I mean? Or a best friend who was a male or something like that, a gay male, anything like that, a heterosexual male. I never wanted to date a woman who always had an affinity for being with someone other than her husband. You know what I mean? Um, I don't necessarily live in a college town. There's colleges around me, but I don't necessarily live in a college town. And I've kind of always decided, like, maybe I should sell my home. Maybe I should, sell my home after I fix it up and flip it. Maybe I should, sell it and think about going abroad, going somewhere where there is a lot of people my age, maybe young people, you know what I mean? Perhaps between the age range of 25 and 35, you know what I mean? Like, maybe I should tip for that option, you know? Um, I don't want to necessarily have to move to a town where it's just like, I have to get suitable for the people around me and I'm still in America. Like, you know what I mean? Like, moving to a place where it's on university grounds. And, like, I don't think I want to do that, And, like, I never saw the obligation to go to school. I never saw, like, what it would have did for me. Like, why am I going to school for? You know? And this goes back to that saying, women chose to work 40 hours a week rather than to raise families 40 hours a week. That's what they did. Because there's no reason I should be seeing a white male in a tuxedo next to a woman in a dress that is black or African, and they're talking about their experiences on TikTok and being together. You know what I mean? Like, how is it that, a white man has more accessibility to a woman who looks like me than I do for myself, Because I'm thinking, like, they live in West Virginia. They live in, like, where else could they live, right? They live in Montana, they live in Wyoming. They live in Missouri, you know. How is it that me living in Southeast Michigan doesn't have the same amount of accessibility. I wouldn't even say opportunity, right? Because opportunity is different. Opportunity is all around us, and accessibility just isn't, right. Accessibility is different than having an opportunity. The opportunity is always there, but like accessibility, right. He has more accessibility to a African woman than I do. He has more accessibility to a black woman than I do. And this kind of speaks to who really gets it out the mud, right? Like who's more dependable. You know what I mean? Like who's more at edge with his emotions. You know what I mean? I look at the fact that I was able to make a success story out of the fact that me being from, the south side of Chicago, and me living and growing up in the southeastern part of Michigan, where I'm able to buy a home, um, work a job, have a skill, um, leave for the military and come back from the military. Um, I look at all of this, right, and I say, I did this. I did this in Chicago and I did this in Michigan. How was I able to do this? And then I look at the fact, like, yes, I did live in Minnesota. I did the same thing when I was in Minnesota. I was successful in Minnesota. I've never had a smoking problem. I've never had a drinking problem. I've never had an attitude problem. I've never had a uh, irreliance problem on, being motivated. I've never had a motivational problem, you know. I've never had a problem with exercising or being in fit in tip top shape. I've never had a problem with it. You know what I mean? Outside of taking mental abuse from, you know, relatives, mental abuse, right? I've never dealt with these problems. So, like, I sit here and I look at all of this, man, and, to me, it's like, if I could make it in Minnesota, I know I can make it in Michigan. If I can make it in Minnesota, I know I can make it in Chicago. It was easy for me to make it in Minnesota, but it was hard for me to make it in Chicago. It was hard for me to make it in Michigan. But I made it in Michigan. I made it. We're talking about someone like who held a job in Michigan, but didn't really have many successes in obtaining a job because there was never a job market around me. When you look at Midtown Detroit and you look at Brightmoor, Detroit, and all these other places in Detroit, right? There's no job markets. You're 16, you're just getting here, and your mother is raising you on Social Security. You need shoes, you need clothes. You gotta find a way to get a job. And when you get a job, you gotta find a way to spend that first check on what you need to get. At best, my mother helped me with transportation. My mother didn't buy me shoes. She didn't buy me clothes. Out of all the years I've lived, she's never bought me clothes or shoes. Never. If I needed something, I had to get it on my own. I had to get it on my own. Transportation, like, I'm 18, I don't have a way to get to school or something like that. Okay, she may give me transportation money, but I always said, like, if I'm in a situation where, like, I'm having children, like, I'm not going to put my children in a position where, they're not going to have these things. They're not going to have these things. Like, they're going to have these things. They're going to. So, like, I had to make this video because, again, I saw the videos, the interracial relationships on TikTok. They keep pushing these these themes, these happenstances that we see. They keep pushing this on us. The white male with the black woman, they keep pushing it on us. And it's like, no matter how many times you say, don't put this in the algorithm, they still put it in your algorithm. You know what I mean? It's not like you're deciding, for the overall consensus of everyone. You're just saying like, I don't agree for myself to see these things. I have that right, but they still show these things to you. It's almost like, white people want to be accepted by, everyone, to the point where it's just like they're telling everyone what to do with their body. You know what I mean? Like, and this is said to be true. This is said to be true. And I've touched on this in like past videos. Not only do white people want to sleep with you, but they want to tell you what to eat. They want to tell you what to eat. Like, I don't think black people can say throughout the entire last 20 years that, we've had a relationship with white people that's been distant. If you do something to your children, white people are going to come knocking at your door. If you possess a unlawful firearm, white people are going to come knocking down your door. This stuff is said to be true over all of the years. It has been said to be true. And again, like, it isn't like white people are holding a blunt force object to black people, or a nuclear button saying, if you don't do this, we're going to do this. It's not like they're doing that, right? It's just that, you have a certain demographic and gendering of people in our community who just choose to be belligerent, because they feel like, they're not responsible for the happiness and overall happiness of everyone. They feel like, if they can get away with doing something stupid, they're going to do it. This goes for, the lady who walks to the gas station every day and gets cigarettes, and, the man who gets up every day who's in his 60s with a baseball cap and jersey on and walks to the liquor store to get some old English beer. This goes for them too. The baby boomers, who've let down a community wholeheartedly. You know what I mean? Like, how is it you're not successful in the community, but you have millennials who comes after the Gen Xers? They've been able to be successful more so than you have been. They've been able to amass a certain investment and income more so than you have been able to. You know what I mean? But for some reason, you are the problem as a millennial. And this holds true for Gen Xers too, like, who feel like, they see fault in whatever a millennial does. Because Gen Xers, they only had Gen Zers. Those are their children, the Gen Zers. And the Gen Zers, they come from the Gen Xers, and the baby boomers had the Gen Zers. The baby boomers, they had the Gen Zers, they had the millennials, and they had the Gen Xers. So that's that. Millennials had the TikTok generation, and they also had Gen Zers. So they had that Generation T. So millennials had Generation T, and they had Gen Zers, and Gen Xers had Gen Zers and Generation T. So I'll just say, you know, a lot of these communities aren't having babies. You know what I mean? Like they aren't having children. They aren't having families. You know, like all the black women are having children with, you know, the white man, the Mexican man, the Indian man, the Arab man. They're having children outside the race because, again, when you look at the communities, all the resources are in the suburban areas. So what happens when a mother gets a voucher and she raises the child on that voucher, and the child who grows up and has children outside of the community? Well, that's because she's a byproduct of Section 8. You know, she had children with someone who lived who was a homeowner in the community she was renting out from. You know, she didn't stay in the black community. She couldn't stay in the black community because there was nothing there for her. In the black community, you know, the place that she come from, she goes back every now and then to see it, right? You know, she drives her car around, and the house that her parents grew up in, you know, is tore up. It's tore to the ground. It's not there anymore. It's a blank space of, you know, land, or it's a blank space of concrete, you know. So this woman has the option where she's going to go and date the guy who she was classmates with in, you know, high school, you know, in the community that her mother was renting out from in the suburbs. Is she going to go with that Indian male? Is she going to go with that Arab male? You know, right now we're only seeing white males and they're with black women. That's pretty much all we're seeing right now, you know. So chocolate babies, they aren't being made. You know, if you see a woman with a chocolate baby, she lives in a hood. You know, she lives in a hood. If you see a woman and a chocolate woman, and she has a child with a man, and the child is like, you know, fair complexion, that child probably lives in the suburbs. You know, this is why it was always weird to me. Like, how can you say everybody is African American, but everybody doesn't look African American, but and also everybody isn't raised around people who look African? You know what I mean? Like, how is it someone who lives in the suburbs, who was raised in the suburbs, who is not even a byproduct of, you know, the welfare system? It's just that they're lighter skinned, right? How is it that they live in that environment and they're called African Americans? You know, everybody gets to be called an African American. Everybody gets to be a descendant of Africans. You know, but nobody wants to be a descendant of white people. And you see this over and over and over and over and over, where people are choosing to go with the the balance of the stick. You know, they don't want to be recognized as white because they see it's nothing to be called white. There's no investment in being called white. You know, there's no investment. You know what I mean? Like, your grandparents, you know, who are white, they didn't leave you anything but, you know, an inheritance fund, and that's going to run out, you know. But that blackness that's in you, that's never going to run out. It's a bill that's always going to be there, and it's always going to accrue. This is why everybody wants to talk about, and Tariq Nasheed, he does this a lot, where he just says, like, we're going to get our reparations. You know, what's going to happen after everybody gets their reparations, right? Are people still going to be proud to be black, right? You know, the light-skinned girl with the afro, is she still going to be proud to be black? And likely, more so than likely, she's not. She's not going to be proud to be black. She's going to go back to calling herself more white than she is black. But again, she's going to have her own understanding of who she is. She has that on the back burner right now. Like, she's thinking, like, okay, I'm black for right now, but I'm going to change my identity sooner or later. And then what happens, right? Everybody has pronouns now. So everybody's getting towards that point where they're getting tired of waiting for reparations. Now everybody's identifying with pronouns. hers, his, theirs. You never see that pronoun, you know. You always see hers, she, and you always see my or something like that, you know. So I would say to those, you know, because when you say things on your podcasts, your videos, your content, it gets into the algorithm. You know what I mean? So it's like if you say don't put interracial couples um, my about page, um, on my homepage, do not put interracial couples on my homepage. The algorithm will follow it a little bit, you know what I mean? But like, you know, because like when I made my last video about chocolate babies, right, and I deleted them because I feel like they were incomplete. Like I didn't get to say what I wanted to say. But you know, when I deleted them, I noticed that you know they were putting women in my algorithm with chocolate babies. You know, like black women with you know very dark skinned babies. I saw that, so that's all I pretty want to say. I'm going to go ahead and end this a little earlier, you know, because you know the kids they're being very um, they're disagreeing with one another right now. They're down there fighting. So um, I'll end this early. I'll see you all on the next one. You know, hopefully I said what I wanted to say in this, and you know people will kind of understand what I'm trying to say. Um, you know, but you know, great peace, Yakoki.